Think you know the twist in Persona 5? Think again. Stick with me, and you'll not only realize the brilliance of Persona 5, but you'll learn how to replicate it anywhere with the 6 essential ingredients for making plot twists work. For those who are new here, I'm Marcus Reed. I'm a writer on a mission to master the craft of storytelling. This all started with me trying to perfect my own work, which just so happens to be a caper, so naturally, plot twists are a big deal for me. I've listened to many on the subject and I have a little something to add to the convo which might help tons. Now, most people tend to think that the big twist in Persona 5 is that Goro Akechi is the traitor. And they go on and on about how it's bad because they saw it coming. Sketchy Akechi and whatever. Or as Jello Apocalypse put it, slapping you across the face with the answer and winking as loudly as possible. That's a great joke. Honestly, I found the whole video funny from a parody perspective, but if someone is interested in actually learning and using the nuts and bolts of storytelling, it's the type of commentary that should be dismissed. That's where my actual concern exists when it comes to budding writers who see that kind of comedy and don't know better. Why? Because there's so much that it isn't teaching or it's implying for the sake of the joke. For instance, if you watch that alone, you might think that Akechi's betrayal is a twist when it is, in fact, never intended to be. The real twist in Persona 5 is that the Phantom Thieves knew Akechi was the mole all along and they were running a con on him. That's where the genius lies. That's what almost tricked me, and if it wasn't for my familiarity with confidence schemes, I would have fallen for it. But yeah, the true twist isn't the reveal of Akechi's betrayal. It's the fact that the crew saw it coming from a mile away and played him like a fiddle. Now, some of you might be wondering, what's the point of the whole Akechi mystery if it isn't the twist? Well, that taps right into one of the 6 essential ingredients for a great twist: engaging misdirection. What Persona 5 does brilliantly here is pull off a Kansas City shuffle, tricking the audience into thinking they're onto the twist when, in reality, the real move is happening elsewhere. I'll break down exactly how they pull that off in a moment. Before we get to that, let's talk about the first step in creating a plot twist of your own: defining the twist. Ask yourself, what's the core surprise or revelation you want to hit the audience with? Is it a betrayal? A hidden identity? A completely unexpected outcome? You need to know this moment inside and out before you start writing anything else. And here's why that's crucial. Understanding your twist lets you clarify its impact. How does it change the story? Does it flip the protagonist's goal on its head? Reveal a hidden truth? Whatever the ripple effect, knowing this upfront helps you structure the entire narrative around it. Once you got that twist locked down, it's time to work backwards. That brings us to the first ingredient in my formula: the clear setup. This is where you lay the foundation, making sure your audience knows exactly who the key players are, what the story is all about, and most importantly, what's at stake. You've got to establish the setting, introduce the characters, define their motivations, and make sure the central conflict is front and center. Now, why does that matter? Well, with a strong setup, the twist is just going to feel random, like it came out of nowhere. But when you do it right, everything falls into place, and a twist just feels like a natural progression of the story. In Persona 5, here's how it nails the first step. 1. Joker is captured at the beginning. The game opens with Joker's arrest, immediately establishing that something has gone wrong. This hooks the audience from the start and sets the stage for everything to come. Why was he captured? Who betrayed him? That's the big question lingering over the entire story. 2. A traitor is responsible for the capture. We quickly learn that there's a mole within the Phantom Thieves, and this is a key piece of the puzzle. It builds anticipation because we know the betrayal is coming, but we don't know who's behind it, at least not yet. 3. What the metaverse is. The metaverse serves as the playground for the Phantom Thieves heist. Establishing its rules and how the thieves operate in this alternate reality is crucial because it plays directly into how the twist later unfolds. Understanding the metaverse is essential to making sense of how they pull off their grand con. 4. Joker's being interrogated by Sai. The interrogation scene with Sai Nijima is crucial. Not only does it establish the immediate stakes, Joker is in serious trouble, but it also sets up a framing device for the entire story. Throughout the game, Joker is recounting his journey to Sai, showing how the Phantom Thieves operated, how they got into the situation, and what led to his capture. This narrative technique creates a dual timeline. The present, where a Joker is held captive and pressured to give up his allies, and the past, where the heist and the group's internal dynamics unfold. Now that we've got that setup locked in and the twist ready to go, the next challenge is figuring out how to get from point A, where everything starts, to point B, the twist itself. And that's where ingredient number 2 comes in. Logical progression. So what is logical progression? It's all about ensuring that the flow of events in your story makes sense. Each action, decision, and consequence has to naturally build on what came before. That way, when the twist hits, it doesn't feel like it came out of nowhere, but instead, like the inevitable result of everything leading up to it. Let's break it down. Every event in your story needs to have a clear cause and effect. Characters' decisions should drive the plot forward and lead to believable consequences. It's the ripple effect. One decision causes another action, which then leads to more choices and outcomes. And speaking of decisions, your characters need to act based on their motivations. Their choices should feel authentic and real. So when they react to the growing tension, it's all earned. You also want to control the pacing. How fast or slow events unfold. Pacing is key to building tension and keeping your audience hooked, especially as you ramp up towards the twist. Lastly, the conflict itself should evolve as the story progresses. Each new challenge and obstacle should escalate the stakes, leading the audience closer to the twist without giving too much away. So, how does Persona 5 use logical progression to guide us from the setup to the twist? First, we have the Phantom Thieves' growth. Each arc in the story, starting with Kamoshida, gives us a clear sense of progression. The crew's success with each new job builds their reputation, and with every mission, they gain more experience in the metaverse. This progression makes their confidence and eventual vulnerability feel earned, and it establishes that they're operating on a larger scale, becoming much more known in the world. Then we've got the setup of rivalry between Akechi and Joker. Akechi is this genius teen detective, highly intelligent, vocal about his opposition of the Phantom Thieves. His public stance against them, combined with his seemingly perfect image, creates tension that feels like it's steadily building towards something major. This rivalry keeps the audience on edge, making Akechi's role central to the story's logical progression. We also have Sai Nijima, who is directly tied to the investigation into the Phantom Thieves. Her frustration with the case grows throughout the game, and it becomes clear that she's going to play a crucial role. The more frustrated she gets, the more intense the stakes become, especially as her role as the investigator, locks her into the framing device that ties the entire story together. And finally, there's a shadowy conspiracy operating in the background, aware of the Phantom Thieves and their activities in the metaverse. As the game progresses, it's clear that this conspiracy is not only watching the thieves, but also using the metaverse for their own agenda. This lurking threat adds complexity and tension to the narrative, giving the story its sense of inevitable conclusion between the crew and these hidden forces. By the time you get to the twist, that Akechi is a part of the conspiracy, infiltrated the crew to sabotage them, and trying to kill them, it all falls together like the only way things could have played out. Oh, and for Sai, her palace was a target of it, a target chosen by Akechi, which was created by the stress of her job and pressure with her family. Anyway, for all of this progression to really work, you need to plant clues throughout the story, clues that your audience might not even notice the first time around. And that brings us to our third ingredient, effective foreshadowing. So what is foreshadowing? It's all about planting subtle hints or clues that suggest where the story is heading, especially the twist. The key here is subtlety. You don't want to make these clues too obvious, or you'll give the twist away. Instead, they should be woven into the narrative so seamlessly that, when the twist is revealed, the audience can look back and go, "Oh, it was right there all along." Let's break it down. 1. Subtlety. You need clues to be discreet. If you hit the audience over the head with them, the twist is going to lose its punch. The best foreshadowing is the kind that blends into the background until the big reveal makes everything clear. 2. Relevance. Every hint you drop should be directly related to the twist. These clues aren't just for decoration. They serve a purpose, helping your audience make sense of the twist once it's revealed. 3. Integration. It's crucial that your foreshadowing feels natural, whether it's through character dialogue, a reoccurring symbol, or even a small detail in the setting. The clues should fit the story without standing out too much. And 4. Symbolism and motifs. Recurring themes or symbols can be an incredibly powerful tool for foreshadowing. They add depth to the story and give your audience more to think about. When these symbols or motifs tie into the twist, they give the reveal an extra layer of meaning. Now, how does Persona 5 use effective foreshadowing to set up its big twist? Let's dive into the key moments. One of the earliest and most subtle hints comes during Akechi's introduction when he comments on pancakes after hearing Morgana speak. The catch here is that only people who have been in the metaverse can hear Morgana, but this moment flies under the radar for most. In hindsight, this small detail is a massive clue that Akechi has been involved in the metaverse far earlier than anyone realized. Also, throughout the game, we see the Phantom Thieves gaining more experience with the metaverse and learning about how it can manipulate perception. These moments are key because they foreshadow how the crew will later use this knowledge to outsmart Akechi and fake Joker's staff. The progression of their understanding feels natural, but it's actually building towards a grand con. And speaking of that, a subtle but more powerful piece of foreshadowing happens during Joker's interrogation. There are moments where he blacks out and the audience doesn't see the full scene, which is a departure from how the framing device normally works. These blackouts are subtle hints that something is being hidden, not just from Sai, but from the audience as well. It plants the idea that there's something more going on that we're not being shown. And then there's the moment when Futaba gets her hands on Akechi's phone while the team is together. At the time, it seems like a simple interaction, but it's actually when she plants a bug to spy on him. This moment foreshadows how the team is able to stay one step ahead of Akechi later on, and it's a perfect example of how small actions can have massive implications for the twist. Finally, the tiny detail I love most, it's the fact that Sai's palace never collapses. This is one of the more subtle clues that something is off. In every other heist, once the Phantom Thieves take a treasure, the palace collapses and they have to make a dramatic escape. But in Sai's case, her palace remains intact, and we never actually see her treasure. The crew claims to have taken it, showcasing a briefcase, but the audience doesn't see the treasure itself. Akechi, not being familiar with the intricacies of their methods, doesn't pick up on this. But for the audience, it's a quiet clue that the heist is not what it seems, and neither is the plan they've set in motion. Now, for all this to really work, it still needs to be shocking. Up until now, I've been focused on the inevitable part of the equation, something I picked up from running excuses. As they often say, a great plot twist should be shocking but inevitable. Everything we talked about so far, the setup, the progression, the foreshadowing, that's the inevitable part. But the key to making it shocking, the real aha moment, lies in the misdirection. So, what exactly is misdirection? It's the art of using red herrings, distractions, and false leads to throw your audience off the scent. You're keeping them guessing, leading them down the wrong path. So when the real twist hits, it feels like that much more impactful. Here's how it works. We got red herrings. One of the most effective tools for misdirections is introducing elements that mislead the audience into drawing the wrong conclusions. These can be characters, events, or details that seem important but ultimately serve as a distraction. You can also layer subplots, like incorporate subplots that draw attention away from the main narrative thread. These secondary storylines can seem connected to the main plotline or twist, but they end up pointing in a completely different direction, keeping the audience occupied. Also, you want to create intricate relationships between characters, where motives are unclear or contradictory. This leads the audience to focus on one character or situation, while the real twist is being set up elsewhere. And finally, we should address some false clues. Plant misleading information throughout the story. These false clues can come through dialogue, action, or situations that make the audience think that the twist is headed one way, when in reality, it's something entirely different. Now, how does Persona 5 use misdirection to keep the audience on their toes? Let's dive into a few standout examples of how the game brilliantly distracts us from the real twist. First up, as said, is the Kansas City Shuffle with Akechi. The writers knew the audience would suspect Akechi. He's the classic too good to be true type. So they leaned into it, making the story seem like it's focused on who will betray the Phantom Thieves. They exploit the fact that the audience is looking for a twist and can probably guess Akechi's true loyalties, especially with how transparent the story is in setting him up as a hero in Texas who you're going to end up working with and then going against. The audience feels clever for picking up on these obvious signs. But here's the trick. The real con is happening somewhere else. While the audience is busy patting themselves on the back for figuring out Akechi's betrayal, the Phantom Thieves are already ahead of the game. They knew about his betrayal long before, and they were playing him the whole time. Then there's the moment where Futaba gets her hand on Akechi's phone. At first glance, it seems just like another quirky moment with her, acting eccentric, doing stuff that fits her established personality. The game plays this off as character humor, something that's easy to brush aside. The misdirection here is brilliant because the audience is so used to her personality that they don't think twice about what she's doing. And throughout Joker's interrogation, there are moments where he blacks out and the audience doesn't get to see everything. It's easy to explain these blackouts by the fact that Joker was drugged when he was captured. He's not coherent, so missing scenes feel like the natural result of his disoriented state. But this is the perfect piece of misdirection. While the audience accepts the obvious explanation, the truth is that these blackouts are hiding key information about the Phantom Thieves' plan and how they're setting up the final twist. These moments of misdirection lead the audience to form conclusions that feel clever but ultimately keep them in the dark about what's really going on. And when the twist finally lands, it's not just surprising, it feels earned, because the story played fair while still pulling the wool over everyone's eyes. Now, there's still two pieces that's crucial to making sure the twist lands. The first is emotional impact. A great twist doesn't just surprise, it hits you where you hurt, or where it counts. Emotional impact is all about how the twist resonates with both the characters and the audience, creating a moment that sticks with them long after the reveal. The way the characters respond to this twist matters a lot. Their shock, relief, or even turmoil amplifies what the audience is feeling. When you see characters you care about caught off guard, or coming out on top, it makes the twist feel personal. To get that emotional punch, you've got to make sure the audience is connected to the characters. If they've invested in them, cared about their struggles, and followed their journey, then the twist is going to hit a lot harder. Still, above all else, timing is everything. You want to build tension leading up to the twist, so that when it finally drops, it releases all that pent-up emotion. The right pacing ensures that the reveal feels earned and satisfying. Also, tying the emotional responses to established themes or recurring motifs adds depth. When the twist reflects the core of what the story has been about all along, it's not just surprising, it feels meaningful. So what's the emotional impact of Persona 5? Well, there are three main emotions at play. There's shock and joy. The moment the audience realizes the Phantom Thieves didn't fall for Akechi's scheme, there's a sense of joy and relief. The characters we've been rooting for this whole time are actually in control of the situation, and we share in their victory when Akechi's plan backfires. There is also a huge feeling of satisfaction in knowing that the Phantom Thieves weren't oblivious to Akechi's shady behavior. As an audience, we might have picked up on Akechi's betrayal, but the real emotional payoff comes from realizing that the crew was on the same wavelength the whole time. They weren't naive, they were smart, calculated, and a step ahead, which makes the twist even more satisfying. The emotional impact here isn't just about the shock of the reveal, it's about how deeply we feel that the Phantom Thieves were in control all along, and how satisfying it is to see Akechi's plan crumble. Of course, for a twist like this to work, the audience can't be left confused. That's where the final ingredient comes into play, the resolution of loose ends. So what does that mean? It's all about making sure that after the twist is revealed, everything ties together neatly. Any relevant plot threads, clues, or character arcs should be resolved so that the audience feels like they've been on a cohesive journey with a satisfying conclusion. Any subplot you've introduced throughout the story should be wrapped up in a way that complements the main narrative. This could mean answering lingering questions or completing side characters' arcs in a meaningful way. Remember all those hints and bits of foreshadowing you planted along the way? Now's the time to connect them logically to the twist. The audience should be able to look back and see how everything adds up. Also, show how the twist has affected your characters. Have they grown? Changed? The twist should impact their internal journey, and the resolution should make their development feel authentic and satisfying. Oh, and use the resolution to echo the larger themes of your story. When everything ties together with a central message or motif, it gives the audience a deeper appreciation for what the story was really about. So how does Persona 5 tie up its loose ends after the twist? After the big reveal, there's a scene where the crew explains everything to Sojiro and Sai. This serves to summarize the events of the twist and clear up any confusion, and walks the audience through how the Phantom Thieves managed to stay ahead of Akechi, clarifying all those small details that led to the successful con. The game ensures that every question is answered and nothing feels unresolved. By tying up loose ends like this, the audience isn't just satisfied with the twist, they understand it. They can look back and see how every subplot, clue, and character arc was built towards that moment. Just like how this entire video is building to this moment, when I asked you to go ahead and hit the like button if you've enjoyed the breakdown and feel like you've gotten a better handling on writing plot twists. Anyway, to recap, keep these 6 ingredients in mind. A clear setup, a logical progression, effective foreshadowing, engaging misdirection, emotional impact, and resolution of loose ends. I'm confident you can pull off any plot twist if you keep these things in mind. Now, it is easy to mess up with foreshadowing, which is why my next video is going to go into depth on ways that people can go awry with it. Subscribe to the channel so you can know when that video is out, if it isn't already.